Friedrich Nietzsche did not believe in a God that did not dance. I would add that a God that did not speak Jacobean English, God's language, is not a God worth having. That being established, we'll turn now to chapter 12 in the Gospel of St. Mark, the following verses, where we hear the following verses. And Jesus sat over against the treasury and beheld how the people cast money into the treasury, and many that were rich cast in much. And there came a certain poor widow, and she threw in 2 mites, which make a farthing. And he called unto him his disciples, and saith unto them, Verily I say unto you, that this poor widow hath cast in more than all they that have cast into the treasury. For they did cast in of their abundance, but she of her want did cast in all that she had, even all her living. Now, I am less interested in this tale's lesson on the proportionality of the gift with respect to the widow's income than I am in the proportionality of her simple, small act in the grand scheme of things. For her hard-earned gift of 2 mites looms as large in the world in which we live as it did in her meager income. I'm not here to talk of grand acts of resistance in the light of current events. I'm not here to call on you to rise up and throw yourself against barricades. No, I'm asking for something like the widow's mite. I'm here to call for those random acts of kindness we have been asked to engage in all along by bumper stickers and yard signs. Those simple and easy smiles we give to one another, but especially to strangers. Those small acts that encompass so much, and yet that carry in them the unencompassable, the infinite, just as the gift of that widow looms large. These small acts are the acts which will carry us through the times ahead. Charity may does begin at home, but it also begins with one small step. For as the Talmud tells us, if you save one person, you save the world. And as Jesus goes on to tell us in Matthew chapter 25, verse 40, And the king shall answer and say unto them, Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as you have done it unto one of these, the least of my brethren, ye have done it unto me. So today I'd like to consider those small things, those insignificant acts done to the least of our brethren. These things we all have in our repertoire. It does not escape my notice that mustard seeds, small as they are, carry enormous weights in the tales both of Christianity and of my own faith, Mahayana Buddhism. Each of those seeds, like the widow's mite, births the universe. Out of this simple particularity emerges the great mystery, the great absolute. So let me tell you of one of the deep teachings of my tradition, a tradition and a mystery my teacher passed to me, his teacher to him, and on back to that lone mendicant we call the Buddha, sitting all night under the Bodhi tree. But let me turn first, ever so briefly, to university philosophy departments, in which the pre-Socratics are often treated as precursors to the philosophical greats, Plato, Aristotle, and on through a progression from Kant to Hegel to Russell to Wittgenstein and others, culminating in the present day. I prefer to see them, as they're sometimes viewed in classics departments, as shadowy representatives of a shamanistic past, the often irrational side of that Apollonian view of Greek civilization. My favorite of these somewhat ghostly figures From a time at the dawn of letters, sages known only through scraps of quotes in later writers, my favorite is Heraclitus, who is known, if at all, then by my fellow Zen practitioners for having prefigured Shunryo Suzuki's famous one-sentence summation of Buddhism, everything changes. Well over 2.5 millennia ago, Heraclitus said, Panta re, everything flows. But it's not the seeming flirtation, accidental or otherwise, with the summation of the Dharma that interests me today. Rather, it's his statement, Hodos ano kato mia kaiute, or the road up, down, one and the same. I was reminded of this recently when anticipating students of mine closing in on the end of the over 700 koans in our curriculum. And I went back to study again the culmination of that koan way, Dongshan's 5 ranks. Dongshan was a 9th century monk who was one of the founders of the school of Zen practice that we in the West call Soto, the school in which I was ordained. He's credited with having created the 5 ranks as an examination of the interplay of the absolute and the particular, of form and emptiness. The Australian Zen teacher Russ Bollitter likes to group the ranks together with the first and second ranks as a pair. We can quickly see why this is so. The first rank examines the particular within the essential, those small discrete acts within the universal. The second examines the essential within the particular, the universal, the absolute, the essential emerging from each particular fact, each particular act, the road up, the road down, one and the same. Dongshan wrote a poem for each of the ranks, with the poem for the first rank being, when the third watch begins before the moon rises, don't think it's strange to meet and not be conscious of meeting, yet still somehow recall the beauty of ancient days. The vast darkness of the night sky, studded with twinkling stars, with the dust of planets, of asteroids, of meteors, with the occasional bat or owl flitting across the firmament, the deep shadows of your house at midnight when you stumble out of bed, searching for the bathroom light. You stub your toe on that very particular, very solid coffee table, there, lurking there in the darkness. In our view, but only in our view and not in the road itself, our view of that upward tending road now turns downward, as Dongshan himself turns from the particular within the essential to the essential within the particular, and to that sensation you have when, having stubbed your toe there in the dark, you find a whole world, a whole universe of sensation, of pain, just there in what up until a moment ago had been perhaps the most insignificant of body parts, your little toe, which now overwhelms you, which now consumes you in that vast, all-encompassing world of pain, that toe itself becoming a world which obliterates every other thought. Dongshan's illustrative poem, the poem that forms his second set of koanic points, goes, an old woman, oversleeping at daybreak, meets the ancient mirror, so bright and clear, face to face, no special reality. Stop searching for your head and don't take shadows for that reality. Who among us has not met that ancient mirror? Perhaps at the end of stumbling through a darkened bedroom late at night after stubbing your toe on misplaced and mysterious furniture, strewn there in the dark by some malefactor, probably you yourself. Or perhaps just at dawn, like the old woman standing before that mirror, cracked and dust-ridden, or fogged with the early morning shower's steam, but still revealing there through its particularity, through its very thusness, absolute, the absolute in all its bright clarity. You are not it, but in truth, it is you. We might replace Dongshan's poem with one more current. If only a couple centuries old, William Blake's Auguries of Innocence begins, of course, with 4 lines that easily evoke the essential within the particular. To see a world in a grain of sand, and a heaven in a wild flower, hold infinity in the palm of your hand, and eternity in an hour. But we needn't turn to nature. Open your eyes and look in one another's face. There, in that single instant, in that moment of the actual, you'll find all the truth, all of creation, a universe of pain, of joy, of wonder, heaven, yes, infinity, yes, eternity, yes, but also the simple, the mundane, the everyday, a universe of the everyday, an eternity of the simple, that one mustard seed, that simple widow's mite. As we walk down the sidewalk, each person we meet, each person we nod to, each person we smile at, perhaps even especially each person we ignore, has a life as complex, as full, as astounding as our own. Rich or poor, Democrat or Republican, each an instantiation of the particular, each blooming forth a whole world. There, if we could just see it, each the absolute within the particular. As we travel down Dongshan's road, we sense the intimacy that comes with this interplay of the essential and the contingent, the absolute and the particular. The Buddha stepping forth from beneath the Bodhi tree on that clear, bright morning and announcing that today I and all beings together are awakened, is the same that we see in the sadness of the face of the Virgin Mary holding her dead son in Michelangelo's Pieta, the same recognition one sees in the grief of Emmett Till's mother, standing before his casket, holding us all to account for what was done to her son. The same hope we find in a young family making it to the other shore of the Rio Grande. The same joy in the face of a friend finding a long-lost friend. Today, you and I and all beings feel that sadness, that grief, that hope, that joy. As we follow Dongshan's path, the very pebbles, the puddles, the cracks and crevices blossom forth with potential, each containing the whole of creation. A 19th century English clergyman walking the cliffs of Dover and finding there in a fossilized bone, just lying out on the beach, a whole new world unimagined before. A squirrel rummaging through the grass of my backyard, finding an immense hidden realm of lost acorns. A child gazing up at the night sky in wonder finds in that moon, in those stars, all of the universe. And we hear this in a children's poem, which I hope you'll forgive a grandfather reciting. Winkin', blinkin', and nod one night, sailed off in a wooden shoe, sailed on a river of crystal light into a sea of dew. Where are you going and what do you wish? The old moon asked the three. We've come to fish for the herring fish that live in this beautiful sea. Nets of silver and gold have we, said Winkin', Blinkin', and Nod. I can't help but call to mind the interconnectedness of all beings that echo in that echo of the net of Indra. Cast into that sea of dew, each crosslink knotted and bejeweled with a crystal whose facets reflect all of the other jewels, and in them all the rest, the river of light, the sea of dew, the old moon, the herring. The old moon laughed and sang a song as they rocked in the wooden shoe, and the wind that sped them all night long ruffled the waves of dew. The little stars were the herring fish that lived in that beautiful sea. Now cast your nets wherever you wish, never afeard are we. So cried the stars to the fishermen three, winkin', blinkin', and nod. That old moon, risen now after the third watch, for what child hasn't woken up in the middle of the night? Who among us has not stirred before or after the third watch, after midnight, stumbling through the dark, fumbling for the light switch, encountering the particularity of that coffee table, perhaps the simple fact of that Lego brick, painfully though amusedly underfoot. Just this, just this. But the children are not yet done. All night long their nets they threw to the stars in the twinkling foam. Then down from the skies came the wooden shoe, bringing the fishermen home. 'Twas all so pretty a sail it seemed as if it could not be, and some folks thought 'twas a dream they dreamed of sailing that beautiful sea. But I shall name you the fishermen three, Winkin', Blinkin', and Nod. And here is a particularity out of which the universal arises, form giving birth to emptiness. Winkin' and blinkin' are two little eyes, and Nod is a little head, and the wooden shoe that sailed the skies is a wee one's trundle bed. So shut your eyes while mother sings of wonderful sights that be, and you shall see the beautiful things as you rock in the misty sea, where the old shoe rocked the fishermen three, Winkin', Blinkin', and Nod. And here's that mystery, because deep within the particularity of those two little eyes, of that little head, lies that growing child, that dharmic being given birth to on those misty seas. And it is here in each of us, in each of you, just two widow's mites, nothing special, and yet so very precious. As that old woman found, so bright and clear, face to face, no special reality. Thank you.